The problem that the reading The Veil of Perception proposes is that we can know for sure what reality looks like, as what we know of the world and its appearance is our own perception, the ideas that we have of it, which makes it uncertain. We will never be able to tell if our perception is close to what reality actually is, or if there's even a resemblance, as all we are able to see are our own ideas. What the reading suggests is to imagine that there might be a veil between the real world and the world of ideas, or the internal and external world. Said veil could be impenetrable or may have non-existent external world, depending on theories two famous philosophers propose. Can reality be experienced in the internal world? The first person to address the problem was the English philosopher John Locke. In the 17th century, he proposed a metaphor in which he stated that the understanding is not too much unlike a closet wholly shut from light, with only some little opening left to let in external visible resemblance or ideas of things without. John Locke thought that what we know and see of the world are the mere ideas of what is truly there, and that there may be a resemblance between what's inside of the closet and what is outside. This metaphor drew conclusions that nobody could actually prove, making it easy for people to be skeptical about the subject, as we couldn't know for sure how the external representations looked like, or if the inner ones were similar to the external ones, meaning that the veil of perception between us and the external world will be impenetrable. Then came the Irish philosopher George Berkeley. As John Locke, he agreed that what we know of the world relied on perception and ideas, though they found a fault in Locke's metaphor as, how could you know for sure if the inner ideas have any resemblance at all with external ones? He believed that Locke was trapped in his closet and that all he knew were representations, as he would never be able to rip said veil of perception. So he drew his own conclusion, that maybe if there was a veil, it all could be ripped, but there would be nothing on the other side. With this, he proposed that our reality relies on the ideas of sensations, and that, as consequence, the external or physical world does not exist. To be is to be perceived, was his principle, which meant that things didn't exist if you weren't seeing them. With this theory, there was no room for skepticism, as he defended it. The argument that everything in the universe is constantly perceived by God, meaning that existence and the immaterial world is guaranteed. So far, we know different concepts about the veil of perception as both philosophers, John Locke and George Berkeley, had different approaches to the subject, thought they did have one thing in common. They agreed that the knowledge or ideas that we as humans possess is in our minds and is the only thing that we have access to. These ideas are between us and the external world, but we really don't know if they are real or if it's just our representation of reality. One example is the concept of beauty. Everyone has a different perception about what beauty is, or what's beautiful to us, and these ideas are very different, since we all have different perceptions and tastes. But at the same time, everyone can agree with some characteristics, as we can share ideas. This concept that we created of beauty is complicated to handle, as we have already created an ideal of how things and people should look like in order to be beautiful. According to the things that we have learned and observed throughout the years, the truth is that we had different views and answers to what beauty is, depending on the person that is perceiving it so, we wouldn't know for sure what is the exact meaning of beauty or how it looks like, as it all depends on how we see things through our own eyes. The problem can be solved because the veil of perception depends on the different points of view each one of us have. Our senses send some kind of information by touching, seeing, or feeling things so. It could be difficult to have the same conclusion as everybody, considering we all perceive and sense things differently. To conclude, the veil of perception does exist, and all of us have one, as we don't know for certain what's the real between the internal world and the external world, which is also a characteristic that connects us. As human beings, since we all follow our senses and ideas and we can share it among us to arrive to similar perceptions and views of what the world is, which may not be true, but it's as close as we can get to understanding it.